Welcome to the Morning Blitz with John Abraham, Captain Cool, and the Bandiman Bailey Lowery. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Captain Cool.
What a weekend of fun. What a weekend of madness. Welcome in John Abraham, Captain Cool, alongside the Bandiman Bailey Larry here on a Madhouse Monday in no man's land. An insightful and very exciting weekend we had over Easter. Hopefully everybody had a great one. But Bandy, first things first, man, what did you get into this Easter weekend?
I think you got a good idea of what I got into this Easter weekend.
Yeah.
Just spending time with the family.
Of course.
Hanging out on the couch and watching every single March Madness game this weekend because, honestly, that might have been the most entertaining weekend of the tournament so far.
I mean, it's hard to really say which is the most entertaining because it gets down to these Sweet 16, these Elite 8 matchups, and this is whenever they're getting a little bit more challenging for teams. You don't know who's really going to pull out the win, and then we get to see just that. Of course, we got to see Alabama go up against North Carolina earlier last week, and then they go up against the Clemson team where it looks like they're going to have a better shot at winning, and that's exactly what they do. And it's the same thing that we get to see. It's this Alabama squad focused around a lot of Mark Sears, and then that kind of bounces out to the rest of the players. And we get to see these guys all really just fall into one. And, I mean, it's impressive because you lose a guy like Reitzel.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to step up around him, and we're not just going to talk Alabama basketball. We're going to go all around the
And we're going to talk a lot of Alabama basketball today.
Oh, yeah. We also will have Drew DeArmond on in the next segment to go around most of these Sweet 16 Elite 8 matchups, and then also on top of that, Cody Goodwin from Bama 247. But, again, you get a guy like Mark Sears that's really just boosting this team, and it helps your other guys like Nick Pringle. He's able to get 16 points on top of that, 11 rebounds.
11 rebounds.
One of his better games this season, and now he's finally starting to come into his own, especially at this part where, you really need to start playing hot or you're not going to see the court that much moving forward. Rylan Griffin also was able to put up 13. Jaren Stevenson was also able to put up some big numbers with 19 points and 3 rebounds. And, of course, Aaron Estrada just able to do it all. 10 points, 5 assists, 8 rebounds. These guys were all playing extremely well. And if Natty Dan wants to come on and belittle this Crimson Tide team, I don't think he's gonna. But, let's just throw him in here real quick. It's a day full of fun. No, I was listening to Tom Abraham's show. Natty Dan, what's up, man?
Well, good morning, gentlemen. And this is not an April Fool's. Michigan made the Final Four.
In the NIT? Did they even make it to the NIT?
Hockey.
Oh, yeah, the Frozen Four. That's what it is.
Frozen Four, that's right.
Yeah,
so we made the Frozen Four. And as far as, hey, I'm excited about that, okay?
That's awesome.
But congratulations, Bama. They're well-deserved.
Mm-hmm.
Coach is a good coach. You need to keep that guy. I'm sure there could be other schools wanting that guy, so you might want to pony up some more cash.
Oh, well,
anyway, and there was a great interview with him, and he's talking about listening to Nick Saban and talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Saban coaches football, just being the coach that he is, you've got to go to a guy like that.
It's the mentality. It's the mentality behind it.
Exactly. So no problem with that. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. But you have the task of beating a juggernaut.
Yeah.
Yep.
This.
You know what?
Ooh.
I don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think Purdue's going to lose either. I'm dreaming for the two big guys. I want to see the two big guys play. That's what everybody wants to see.
Yeah. Now,
because they're big, they're wide. The guy from Connecticut's 7'2". I think he's 280. And then Edey, I think Edey's over 300.
Dude,
and he's 7'4". He's a big load.
He's a Terminator.
I'm curious to see how this plays. I know for a Bama perspective in the state of Alabama, and you guys, your show, you want Bama. I get it. But really, I mean, wouldn't you guys really want to see those two big guys beat up on each other?
Yes, but
so Bandy wants that.
Look, where there's
you finish off. You finish off where you're going.
Now, where there's delusion, there's hope.
Yeah,
we've already made it this far. Who's to say we couldn't get a little further? I mean, it may be a little greedy, but
you're not wrong.
Who's to say we couldn't get a little further? We've already made it this far. I got hope But you're right. UConn is an absolute juggernaut right now.
And before you go off, Natty Dan, I do want to say we were having this same type of thought process going into that UNC game against the True Blue squad. Is Alabama going to be able to get it done? Are they legit? They're coming off of a Grand Canyon win that they were barely able to get off the ground. Yeah. And then they are able to outplay this UNC team just straight out. And then, of course, go up against the Clemson team that's been riding really hot. So I definitely want to see Alabama win against UConn. Do I think it's going to happen? It's a little 50-50 right now.
Very unlikely.
I know that UConn's got a stellar team, better than last year, the team that went all the way and won it. But, again, I mean, it has been nothing but adversity for these teams, especially deep in this run.
Because I want to see Alabama NC State.
Yeah.
The UConn situation, I think if the big guy fouls out, and, that'll help out immensely for your team. But, you got a good draw. You had a good draw in the NCAA tournament, and then you did what you're supposed to do, and then you really showed up against North Carolina.
Yep.
Kudos to that. So you got a combination of a good draw, playing well at a critical time in the season, and now this is a big thing. Now here's the problem: if they end up by beating Connecticut, and let's say sometimes where you beat this juggernaut. And then the next game, you kind of lay a dud, and you're going to have to put 2 back-to-back performances like that because I believe Purdue is going to get in the finals, and that's going to be awfully hard to beat that team, especially with the big guy.
Yeah, for sure about that. It was definitely a good
Well, anyway,
game.
hey, at least you're playing in the playoffs. So
yes, sir.
Congratulations.
True.
Hey, good luck to your Michigan Wolverines in the Frozen Four. That's going to be some good stuff.
Fellas, it's been great seeing you.
Yeah, we're going 90
There
down.
you go.
And I got Nicole. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I had no idea the Frozen Four was going on right
Dude,
now.
I was at Corlejo's eating a quesadilla, and I looked up, and I was talking with my mom. And thankfully enough, I always try and position myself where there's a TV behind the person I'm talking to. I know it's a terrible thing, but I was looking up, and I saw that there was the Frozen Four was going on. And I was thinking to myself, I don't know how many people are probably focused on this right now. Even me, as hockey's like my third, I would say second or third sport, that I like to go to. Yeah. But with the March Madness, I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. All right, it really doesn't.
It was really hard to beat that week.
Yeah.
I mean, NC State, Tennessee, Purdue.
Great game.
Just kind of a brief talk about this.
Yeah.
Is Zach Edey that unreffable?
I don't know if Zach Edey is a human being, if we're being honest.
But is he that unreffable?
And I know where you're coming from. If it was a very physical game, if you throw 4 or 5 guys at the other team at the same time that could draw a foul, I mean, who are they? They're going to only draw one of those fouls. Yeah. Okay, and this is a physical game, and Zach Edey was still able to, of course, put up the buckets he was. And on top of that, Bandy, I mean, this Purdue team, you can't say it was all, the refs weren't calling these fouls. Purdue had 47 rebounds to Tennessee's 26. All right, so they were turning the ball.
Oh, I wonder why.
And it was, well, I mean, to Zach Edey, he's a gigantic man, but
there have only been 4 games. There have been 4 games in the past 3 tournaments where one team has had more than 10 total fouls than the other.
No.
Every single one of those games involved Purdue.
They're trying to get them there. They were upset about what happened last year, and they're like, "Hey, let's just
And not to mention,
give
3
them
of them
shove.
were this year.
It's a good team.
The last one was in 2022 against Texas.
Andy, you make a good point. All right, but when I watched this Tennessee-Purdue matchup, it reminded me a lot of
a lot went wrong for Tennessee.
I will say, yeah. But Tennessee was in the position to also get that win. But that was whenever we were envisioning an actual 2 SEC teams in the Final Four. John was even throwing out Tennessee versus Alabama. It's going to happen. Of course, you can throw out a lot of things, but it's actually, getting to watch these teams. You're going to find out that there's some teams that are just a little bit on a different level. We thought that was the case for a UNC team. As they go up against Alabama, we noticed that Alabama's actually riding hot, not only against the Charlestons, not only against the Grand Canyons, but against any opponent they're thrown at. And you could say, oh, it's a good draw. It's a wonderful draw. But this is just the way college basketball works, especially in this tournament. It doesn't matter because all these challenges, you're going to face off against that big juggernaut team. And in this case, it's going to be Alabama going up against UConn and NC State, who is having a ridiculous run. They have not lost since the beginning of the ACC tournament. Mind you, before that, they lost 4 games straight.
Yeah.
They go on into this ACC tournament, win it, continue to win. Don't even just play up against these small Joe Schmo teams. They play up against Marquette. They win. They play up against Duke. they win. They're going to continue on, and I think that they're going to have a really good game against this Purdue team, and I think it's going to be the big body versus the skinny, tall body and the slenderman that is Zach Edey.
Yeah, this NC State team, they are a combination of running their game plan to perfection. Like, they know what they want to do on offense, like what their game plan is, and they know how to run their offense and how to adjust when they need to.
Yeah.
On top of that, they are a big team.
Big team.
NC State is not at any point playing small ball against any team they've really played up against. And again, DJ Burns Jr. being at the forefront of that.
Gigantic.
This dude is, I mean, he plays in a little. my brother made a great comparison over the weekend. He's like, this is like watching 2004 Shaq.
Yeah, talk about not your typical basketball player.
He's a little lackadaisical getting up and down the court, but I mean, you get him in the paint and he's going one-on-one against anybody, more likely than not, he's going to just out-physical you. It's
very, very interesting to see this team because it's not a team
He's got a floater. He's got like a lean-back floater. Very
smooth as well. But NC State, the concern for this team is, they don't stretch it out wide, okay? They don't have that depth that other teams will have, but they're still able to make it happen with DJ Burns, who's, again, he's playing a majority of the game. I don't know how they're keeping him out there, but they're definitely getting the good draw, especially with that big win over that Duke Blue Devil squad that, of course, surprised some teams themselves. But we got to hop into a break, Bandy, because when we come back, we have a great conversation right around the corner with one Mr. Cody Goodwin from Bama 247 about this Alabama team and what they have to do to win against a solid UConn squad. And then later on, Drew DeArmond going to go around the rest of the college madness here on the Morning Blitz on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
The state's largest orthopedic group is growing to meet the needs of the patients in our community. The Orthopedic Center has long been the most trusted name in orthopedics in North Alabama. So as our area continues on the fast track, so does the need for premier orthopedic care anywhere and anytime you need it. TOC is proud to announce the opening of our new locations in Albertville and Hampton Cove, along with the grand opening of our newest office in Decatur. These clinics will offer the same high-quality orthopedic care you have come to associate with TOC, with the convenience of being closer to home. As a patient, your time is your most precious asset, and we recognize that at TOC. That's why we are also proud to announce the opening of our urgent ortho clinics to handle those bumps and bruises that need prompt attention. These clinics are available to care for acute orthopedic injuries with no appointment necessary. With 38 physicians, 20 centers of excellence, and now more than a dozen locations to serve you, TOC will continue to be the name you turn to for the best orthopedic care at the right time. Visit our website at visittoc.com for more information. TOC, helping you live a better life.
The company is Eagle Masonry and Insulation, but did you know they're also Eagle Landscaping and Dirt Work? Eagle can take care of all your landscaping needs, including irrigation, sod work, and planting, both plants and trees. On the dirt work side, Eagle can grade and build your pads, haul dirt in or out, and even do erosion control. Philip Love and his team can do it all for you. The website is the same, insulatewitheagle.com, as is the phone number, 256-755-1556. Give them a call and see what Eagle can do for you. Eagle saves you time. Eagle saves you money. From heirloom diamonds to contemporary jewels, Loring & Company is the place to find something truly special. Whether shopping for a diamond ring for that once-in-a-lifetime occasion or marking a milestone birthday or personal achievement with a Rolex watch, you'll find just the thing in our edit of the world's most sought-after brands, including David Yurman, Roberto Coin, Marco Bicego, and Fopay. Expect a treasure trove of the world's most unique, even breathtaking earrings, rings, necklaces, and bracelets, making choosing just one piece a challenge in itself. Loring & Company Jewelers on Airport Road.
Did you know that Valley Equipment Rental also specializes in day and weekend rentals to homeowners? The weekend rentals is by far the best deal that they offer. If you pick up after 2 on a Friday or anytime Saturday morning, it's not due in until Monday morning before 8 a.m. for a one-day charge. For a small fee, Valley can even haul anything they carry. Valley has extremely experienced and knowledgeable staff that can help you decide what size machine you need or what type of machine you need to get your job done like a pro. They have all the big items that the contractors need for their jobs, but they also carry the small tools that can help you with your DIY project. More importantly, Valley is locally owned and operated, which means when you have an issue, you can get someone on it right away, right here in the Valley. Heck, ask for Ross Roberts, the owner, if you like. Try calling one of the big box national outlets and ask for the owner. That's if you could even get through the automation. Buy local. Buy Valley Equipment Rental. Valley Equipment Rental has 2 locations, one on the North and South Parkway. Learn more at valleyequipmentrents.com.
Hello, welcome back in to the Morning Blitz. John Abraham, Captain Cool, alongside the Bandiman, Bailey Lowery. As we look forward into the week, it's going to be a lot of fun. A little bit of a break for some of these college basketball teams, which is well-deserved because, of course, the teams that I really look at that really need that break is NC State and, of course, this Alabama Crimson Tide team because, oh, wow, talk about the gauntlet that they had to get through over the weekend. NC State, though, still is an impressive squad for me. We do need to focus a little bit more on them just because what they've been capable of. But, of course, we want to talk a little bit of Alabama, as well as just the SEC when it comes to this tournament because it's been an impressive run outside of that first round for at least two of these squads. And to help us talk about that and more is one Mr. Cody Goodwin from Bama 247. Cody, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. I'm back home currently for a couple days,
Nice.
But my flight to Phoenix takes off early Wednesday morning, so we will be back out on the West Coast. And I think if my math is right, that's 19 out of 21 days on the road, almost exclusively on the western side of the country, which is pretty fun given how this team has been playing, right?
For sure about that. And, I mean, it's not just the athletes that need to get a little bit of a break. It's some of the media as well because they're out there alongside them the entire time. And I definitely feel for you, Cody, because, I mean, just SEC media days, having to get up and start going for like 4 days straight the entire time, even that could be a little taxing. So you're having to follow this team around, and of course, it's amazing, but it's going to take a little bit of wear and tear. But kind of just talk about this team. I mean, over the weekend, you're able to beat a UNC team. Of course, we got to talk a little bit about that. And then they go on and play up against this Clemson team, a little bit better chances, but still a challenge. Talk about where everything kind of went right and when you kind of thought, hey, this Alabama team might have something in their back pocket.
Well, let me start here. Nobody's going to feel bad for a sports writer for one, but especially a sports writer that I think over the last few months has gotten to cover an SEC championship game, college football playoff at the Rose Bowl, and, this Alabama team that, at one point was on top of the SEC, and now they're going to the first Final Four in school history. Nobody is going to feel bad if I have a little bit of a scratchy throat and I've lost a little bit of sleep, which is fine. This is what we sign up for when we get into this business. Dude, in terms of Alabama, I think I remember talking to you guys about, the North Carolina matchup and just, look, they're going to need a little bit of everything from everybody, and holy cow, did they get it, right? I know Grant Nelson was kind of the superhero of that game with 24 and 12 and just really took it over down the stretch, but you got your 18 from Mark Sears. You got 19 from Rylan Griffin, who seemed to, every time UNC made a run, he was there with a three to answer it and just kind of all right, let's put a little water on that fire and make sure it doesn't get too out of control. Aaron Estrada, few too many shots for my taste, but still 19 points there. They did what they had to do, right? And they were able to do enough, mostly Grant Nelson on Armando Bacot to keep him at bay. Rylan Griffin, I think the rest of the country finally found out that, hey, this guy's a pretty good defender because he drew the R.J. Davis assignment, and R.J. Davis went 4 of 20 overall, 0 of 9 from 3, only finished with 16 points. Just a phenomenal game. They got exactly what they needed from everybody. I think they probably could have used a little bit more off the bench, right? Jaron Stevenson didn't really contribute a whole lot, but Sam Walters hit a 3. Mo Diabate produced, 10 really good minutes. Yeah. And at that point, that was probably when I first, started thinking, probably late in the second half there when they surged to take the lead one final time, this team has it, right? They've always had the talent and they had the system, and you knew if they were going to make a run in this tournament, they were probably going to have to shoot their way to making a run. And, I'd say close to 50% from the floor and 42% from 3 against a really good North Carolina defense is, hey, they got a pretty good shot here. And then against Clemson, it was, I think a lot of us spent the day in between the UNC-Clemson matchups just kind of looking back at the first Clemson game. And if you go back and remember that game, it wasn't the best game from Alabama. I think if you look back at that game, Mo Wage started that game. Diabate, I don't know, played at all in that game. If he did, it was only a few minutes. Nick Pringle was coming off the bench. Trelly was coming off the bench. It was a totally different team from the team that Alabama has now transformed into. And so, where were they going to get the points to make up, what was it, an 85-77 loss? So where are they going to make up the 8 or 9 points that they need to take it over? Well, Rylan Griffin that game only scored 6 points. They only got, I don't know that Jaron Stevenson scored at all in that game. Sam Walters only had 3 points. Nick Pringles only had 4 points. So, fast forward to Saturday night, and, Jaron Stevenson and Nick Pringle are the two heroes of the game because Grant Nelson's not able to replicate his superhero performance. Mark Sears, again, penciling him in for his 20 points. He ended up with 23. Rylan Griffin, again, just a monster on the defensive end, but also hit some timely shots. And then, as is always the case with this Alabama team, when they started hitting threes, they're really, really tough to beat. And they went 10 of 15 from behind the arc in the second half. And that more or less gave them enough distance to hold off a late surge from Clemson. So, man, they're just a really fun team. You never really know who's going to step up, but they've shown, over the course of these last 2 weeks that somebody is going to step up in this next game. Now, we'll talk about the UConn matchup coming up, but, man, what a fun team to watch, right? Especially when a lot of us, I think, going into this tournament thought that, if they get out of the first weekend, that's a success, right? Like that would be, I think, a nice recovery from an up and down season. Now here they are doing what no Alabama team has ever done before, and that's been really fun to watch.
No, for sure about that. And I mean, just thinking about like last year, we have to pretty much compare it to last year. It's like, is this team going to go as far? It's like, we don't know if their defense is good enough. Their offense is going to be a little shaky, relying on those threes. But
on top of being a completely different team.
Exactly. It's kind of just felt like it's all just kind of falling into place. And Bandy, I was actually going to go to the defensive side of the ball. I don't know where you want to fly to next, but I mean, those concerns have kind of, it feels like they've kind of been pushed to the side for now. They're still allowing the average 80-plus points, but again, holding them just under what Alabama's scoring. I mean, it's got to be something changing in the system. On top of that, the offense. There's just too much to talk about.
And I think we all kind of knew once we figured out midway through the season, this is a very efficient offense. They've got the shooters this year. Just the personnel is there to, routinely put up anywhere from 80, 90, oftentimes even 100 points if the shots are really falling. They didn't need an elite defense, right? Like the couple of years that they were able to win the SEC, they did it with elite defensive play. They didn't need an elite defense. They just needed a defense that was kind of good enough. And for whatever reason, the calendar switched over to the NCAA tournament, and whatever Oates was preaching finally sunk in because, the defense hasn't been phenomenal, right? Like 96 points to Charleston, who runs a similar type of offense, and then, obviously they gave up north of 80 each of the last two games against UNC and Clemson, two really good offensive teams that just matchup-wise, favors them a little bit. But the defense has been good enough, right? And that's really all they've needed. They didn't need a top 10. They didn't need a top 25. I mean, really, most nights they don't even need a top 50 defense. They just need a defense that can give them a good solid half or a good solid 20 minutes, can get a few extra stops here and there. And then if the shots are falling, that's really all they need to kind of pull away. That's all they needed against UNC, who I thought was a really good team. That's all they needed against Clemson, which, again, similar story to Alabama. Struggled down the stretch, but really got hot, in the national tournament. And, I think we're seeing that now. Like, we're seeing the defense step up just enough so that the offense can do its thing. And, Alabama hasn't needed to score 100 points yet. They may need to against UConn, but, as the offense continues to roll, the defense is getting just enough stops, to survive and advance. And that's been really cool to watch, too. Just the fact that these guys are waking up and it's like, hey, we don't need to be perfect. We don't need to be shut down. They had to against Grand Canyon a little bit, but, as long as the shots are falling, just do just enough defensively, and they've been doing that the last few weeks.
Yeah, Cody Goodwin with us from Bama 247 and CBS Sports, and I kind of wanted to just have a little fun with this, throw a prediction out there, because, again, you brought up that we kind of had the heroes of the last two games, like Grant Nelson being the hero against the North Carolina game. Jaron Stevenson, who I don't even know if I've seen make 5 threes all year, making 5 threes against Clemson. Who do you think might be the hero or might be going to be stepping up into their role or stepping up for the Tide here against UConn on Saturday?
Ooh, that's tough. I lightly pencil in Mark Sears for his 18, 20, 22 points, whatever the case may be. Rylan Griffin, I think, has shown that he can be a pretty consistent 10, 12, 15 points a game guy. I'd like for Aaron Estrada to be a little bit more efficient with some of his shot selection, but he seems to be a guy that'll give you double digits. If they're going to knock off UConn, it probably needs to be another monster Grant Nelson game because UConn, it's a very efficient offensive team. They're obviously an overpowering defensive team as well, but they're probably going to need a little bit more out of the big guys. So, guys like Nick Pringle, guys like Grant Nelson, you're probably going to need somewhere in the ballpark of 15 to 20 points from those guys, and then also, just as good of a defensive effort against UConn, because they just got so many different ways that they can beat you. But Donovan Clingan is a monster in the paint, more so defensively, I think, than offensively. Like, I think a lot of people are maybe lightly penciling in, Clingan against either DJ Burns or Zach Edey in the title game. But, if the same Grant Nelson that showed up against Armando Bacot shows up against Donovan Clingan, I don't know if they're probably not, 1-for-1 type matchups, but, you're going to need a big Grant Nelson game. You're going to need a big Nick Pringle game.
Yeah.
But also, maybe they're just shooting lights out from the outside and Trelly comes back and drops 20. I think that'd be pretty magical for Alabama as well. But, I think just early prognosis, probably need a little bit, a lot from the big guys. I think they'd probably have to be the heroes and play an unreal game if Alabama's going to somehow get through UConn.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't know if hero's the right way to go about this Alabama team, just because, you're going to need a lot out of mainly everybody on that starting five. Of course, the rest of that bench, you're going to need something. And I think Alabama's done a great job with these last two matchups, just getting everybody involved, taking a little bit of that pressure off of Mark Sears so he doesn't have to try and score 32 points. Just get him at his average at 23, and I think everybody else will kind of just fall into place. But, again, you kind of talked about this UConn team. I know you do want to talk about them a little bit more because, of course, this is the competition I feel like everybody's been waiting for that they didn't expect to happen. And, you talked about Clingan. This guy he's elite, but what else does this UConn team have that might step in the way of Alabama's run to the championship game?
They're really good defensively, man. Like I think I mentioned this during the football season, just some of those really, really good defenses, they make you play left-handed. Like they try to take away basically your greatest strength and say, okay, like we're not going to let, Mark Sears, for example, beat us.
Yeah.
So how are you going to try and do it without that guy, right? Not saying that, Mark Sears is going to be the guy that they're going to target, but just defensively, they make life really, really hard on the opposing teams. They did it to Illinois, more or less in the second half with a 30-0 run. Like, I don't know that anybody has ever seen that in an Elite Eight game before. They've won their 4 NCAA tournament games by an average of 27.5 points. Like, just ridiculous stuff. The combination of an elite defense and just a really efficient offense. Like, they got 4 guys that are averaging 10 points or more per game. They've got a lot of guys that are shooting the ball north of 40% from the floor. They do it a lot on the inside, which, again, talking about this Alabama team, when they were struggling, throughout the season, it was usually with a lot of, teams that are very, very good in the interior, right? When they lost, 3 straight games to Purdue, Creighton, and Arizona, it was a lot of the inside action that really kind of screwed them up. When they lost 4 of 6 near the end, the defense just wasn't really doing a whole lot. It was still a lot of, interior presence that was giving them a lot of trouble. UConn's very, very good at that. So I know that they've got a couple of really good guards in Tristan Newton and Cam Spencer. Both those guys are averaging more than 14 points a game. Talked about Donovan Clingan. Alex Caravan is very, very good at the forward. They do a lot of things really, really well. And I think more importantly, they don't do a lot of things poorly. Like they're just very, very consistent, a very high floor team. It's going to take a lot to rattle these guys because they just don't get rattled easily. So not a very good matchup, but then again, neither was North Carolina and Clemson, and yet Alabama found a way to win those games. I just think this UConn team is going to be a little bit of a different challenge, a little bit of a steeper mountain to climb. But, hey, you put yourself in this position, you've got 40 minutes to figure it out. Well, they got a few days to figure out a game plan and then 40 minutes to figure it out on Saturday in Phoenix. But, yeah, man, it's UConn's number 1 seed for a reason, the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. And they've been playing like it. They're an absolute buzzsaw. They've won 66 games over the last 2 years with a chance to potentially win 2 more. And, no team's gone back-to-back, I think, in almost 2 decades. I believe it was Florida that won back-to-back in 06 and 07. And, this UConn team is primed to do that. It's going to take a monster effort from Alabama to get this job done late on Saturday.
No doubt about that. You think they're better than last year's team?
They look it, man. Like, they seem inevitable. Like that. I don't want to use that term because it's basketball and one off night shooting, as we've seen with this Alabama team, one off night can usually spell the end of that game. And especially in a tournament, right? Like one and done. Like if you have one off night shooting, that's rough. But I don't know, man. Like this UConn team, there were more than a few jokes in LA about how, Alabama Clemson's going to be a phenomenal game, but we all know that the winner is going to go run into a buzzsaw in UConn in Phoenix in the Final Four. So we'll see what happens. But, it's going to be a tough one for Alabama to try and get through this. But, hey, they've gotten this far, so why not more?
Yeah. Regardless, what a journey for this Crimson Tide team. Cody, let the people know where they can follow you online and on socials.
Yeah, man, we've been covering this team top to bottom since the season began at 247 Sports, Bama 247 specifically. And I'm on Twitter at Cody Goodwin. So I leave for Phoenix Wednesday morning. We got a lot of fun stuff coming this week in preparation for Saturday's game. So come along and enjoy the ride with us.
Good stuff, brother. Looking forward to it.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cody Goodwin from Bama 247. Make sure you check out his work. Great guest, great dude, and, of course, great sports dude as well when it comes down to it. I mean, the guy knows quite a bit about this Crimson Tide team. We got to hop into a break because when we come back, we're talking to another guy who knows quite a bit about this Alabama Crimson Tide team in the form of Drudy Armand from Talking Ball. That's what's coming up here on the Morning Blitz on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
It's a beautiful day for a ball game.
Here it comes, and there it goes. Fly ball, deep left field, way back. This one is up. This one is gone.
Grab your peanuts and Cracker Jacks and get ready to cheer on the Tide.
Called third strike, a slider lower inside corner.
The Tide plays here all season long.
Here's a spin. Here's Bowman's throw home. The slide, and he's safe.
On your home for Alabama baseball, the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Tom Luganbill here for my friends at Woody Anderson Ford. Bobby White and his team take great pride in their service department, and you can see it the moment you walk into those beautiful new service lanes. And just like a championship team, they all work together to make sure your experience is second to none, whether you drive a Ford or not. Also, check out the gold-certified pre-owned inventory at Woody Anderson Ford for great deals every day. Stop by and see them at Jordan and Sparkman or at Woody Anderson of Madison on Hughes Road, or visit WoodyAndersonFord.com.
When I chose a garage door company, I did my homework. I needed Precision Overhead Garage Door Service. They have a 5-star Google rating. I checked their reviews and liked what their customers had to say. Precision Overhead Garage Door has lifetime warranty packages. Same-day service if I call before 2 p.m. If they can't make it the same day, my service call fee the next day is waived. They did a 25-point safety inspection on the door and operator. Now that's peace of mind. Residential, commercial, and gate services. Precision Overhead Garage Door Service. Call 256-400-4500.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time, or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs: residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing, we have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates, residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. Check us out at FlemingHSV.com. FlemingHSV.com. When you need a quick response, it's Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
From the Fox 54 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Emily Owen. For this Monday, expect another warm afternoon. High temperatures are expected to reach the low 80s, upper 70s for some across the Tennessee Valley. It looks like we'll sit under a cloudy sky as well. Heading into your Monday night, expect mostly clouds to continue. It looks like low temperature is going to be falling into the mid and upper 60s for the overnight. Rain returns on Tuesday. I'm Fox 54 meteorologist Emily Owen on your home for ESPN Radio 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
We cover all the SEC schools, including Western Union and Venmo.
I want that money!
You know, 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
You know, this would be the perfect sounder to start off the Rashee Rice story, but I'm not going to worry about it. But welcome back in, John Abraham, Captain Cool, alongside the Bandiman, Bailey Lowery, here on the Morning Blitz on a Madhouse Monday in no man's land. Make sure you guys check us out over on the YouTubes at WZZN TV, so you get to see me and the Bandiman, as well as the rest of the local programming. Everybody, his faces, you can see them, except for the drive. They don't do the camera thing. But and I will remind you guys that this show is presented by the wonderful people at Fleming Roofing and Restoration, the guys you need to talk to about all of your roofing needs. If you're having any roofing problems, make sure you look them up online, fill out your free quote today, and remember that Fleming always shows up. We love those very reliable guys over at Fleming, but I know one guy that just walked in the studio loves the reliable guys over at Tuscaloosa in the form of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Drew, how are you doing today, man?
Just still surreal, man.
Yeah.
Alabama going to the Final Four, the biggest event in college basketball, the biggest stage. It finally happened. This program is, got a lot of tradition starting back, in the Rocket 8 in the 50s with Johnny D, but starting when Coach C.M. Newton got there in the late 60s and built the program back up. It's been a very strong one. They did go through a period of time after Mark Gottfried left where under Anthony Grant and Avery Johnson, there was only 2 NCAA tournament appearances, a lot of NIT appearances, but basketball has always mattered at Alabama. They've had good enough players. I mean, when you guys were either, very, very young or embryos, Alabama in the early 90s had the second most active NBA players to North Carolina at one period of time. They churned out pros left and right. The one thing they didn't do is they didn't get to the Final Four. But now they've finally broken through under Nate Oates. It was a tremendous weekend, beating North Carolina on Thursday, which was just a huge watershed moment. They've beaten the Tar Heels in the past and in the tournament, but not since 1976. To beat them in the big dance, and to do that and then to get some revenge against Clemson. And I'll freely admit, as I said on Talking Ball, I did not have Alabama in the Final Four. I had them in the Elite Eight because I felt like Arizona wasn't a good matchup. But that's the beauty of the tournament. Clemson took out Arizona, and then gave Alabama a rematch against the Tigers. The Tigers are not the most athletic group. They're more methodical, and Alabama was able to push the pace. And, I heard Cody Goodwin say it, but Alabama made 16 threes in this game, to beat Clemson. They made 11 the time before, and so did Clemson. But this time, Clemson wasn't able to keep up with that three-point barrage. Alabama did a better job. They fouled out P.J. Hall, who is one of the best bigs in the ACC. They fouled him out with 3 minutes to go because Nick Pringle just outworked him, just wanted it more, played a little harder, I thought, and played smarter. And ended up with 16 and 11, which I think his best game of the year, all things considered. And he made 8 free throws, which for Nick has struggled from the free throw line, much like Muhammad Diabate had his moment in the first weekend against Grand Canyon when he makes 3 in a row. Nick made a bunch of big ones. And then, of course, you get Mark Sears. Sears is the best guard in college basketball, but they just needed some help for him. And it's been a different guy pretty much every game. But if you're going to go on runs like this, that's what has to happen. Mo Diabate had his moment, and then what we had from and then Grant Nelson looked like Superman against North Carolina. And he had a little help from Sam Walters, who made a couple of big buckets. And then in this past game, Sears had a great second half. But you had also, Nick Pringle, I just mentioned, and then, Jaron Stevenson. Stevenson, it was apropos. Robert Ory was in the stands watching this game, and he was on some teams at Alabama that were talented enough to make the Final Four but did not. But Jaron Stevenson is another Robert Ory with the way he can shoot the ball at 6'10". Robert was 6'9", 6'10", with an unbelievable wingspan and athleticism, and he could shoot the ball like a guard. Jaron shot it. He shot the three pretty well all year. Now he was mostly proficient from the corners, but his game was always to kind of stretch the defense.
Yeah.
But he just had his best volume scoring game at the best possible time. He hit the 5 triples on Saturday night, And then what's improved for him, though, is his confidence and the way he defended. He was able to use his length, use his girth to defend and to rebound. And Alabama, a thing I didn't hear you guys talk about, but Alabama out-rebounded Clemson by 11, which is huge. It was 44-33, and especially in the last 3, 4, 5 minutes when the possessions are the most important. They were able to win the battle of the boards, battle of the glass, get back to the free throw line. And every time Clemson, and I'll give Clemson credit, Clemson didn't play poorly. Alabama just outplayed them. Clemson put some pressure on Alabama. They made some big threes, but Alabama answered with buckets every time.
Yeah, like
and that's how you have to close out big-time opponents and get to the Final Four.
Yeah, like that last couple-minute stretch where, they were just playing near the top of the key, just setting up screens for that 1 3-point shooter they had. And Clemson, he was knocking down 2 in a row.
Yeah, he was.
And then Alabama comes back, does the same thing, but with 3 different players. It's just that kind of tenacity. I just love watching this Alabama team. And they got the potential to go all the way and actually win the championship. They got the potential to beat everybody.
Well, they do, but they're going to have to play their best game against the Goliath known as UConn. But as I've said, 2015, Kentucky came in undefeated. People were thinking they would go 40-0, and Wisconsin had other ideas. When I was growing up in high school, UNLV just dismantled Duke in '90. Beat them, by 30. It was the most lopsided national championship game I've ever watched. Vegas brought their whole team back. They all came back, and they were undefeated and played Duke again in the semifinals. And Duke didn't play a perfect game, but pretty close. And Duke beat them to win their first national championship, because Duke had always gotten into the Final Four but had never finished. And everybody wondered if Coach K would ever win it. He went on to win 5 of them. So, but again, it just – and then, of course, 85, Georgetown, Villanova. Georgetown had beaten them soundly twice. Georgetown had already won a national championship in 1984, beaten Vice Lamajama. It looked like they had a chance to repeat. And then Villanova basically plays the perfect game and beats them. So that's the beauty of this tournament. It's why it's the greatest sporting event ever. You're not playing a series. It's not a 4-game series like the NBA, where if you play poorly in one game, or if LeBron's got a headache and he doesn't feel like showing up for one game, you can come back and play hard the other 3. You've got to win now, and so that's the beauty of it. And if Alabama can shoot the 3 well, there's about 3 factors I think that give them a chance against UConn. They've got to. I think Alabama has to make it in the high teens to 23s. That's a lot, but I think they have to have one of their best games shooting the 3, because UConn has so many weapons. And then you'll have to. It would make UConn also kind of spread out defensively, and have to and then maybe give you a chance to get to the rim and bring Klingon away from the basket, especially if it's a guy like Jaren Stevenson or Grant Nelson. I think they have to keep turnovers to a minimum, especially the live ball turnovers that allow UConn easy baskets. That UConn's a very, very efficient offensive team. Alabama needs to keep their turnovers probably under 10, honestly, in this game. And then somehow they need to either win or stay in it on the glass. Yeah. They can't give UConn second and third shots. UConn's too balanced. They've got too much, with Cam Spencer, the transfer from Rutgers. He's steady Eddie. Tristan Newton, great guard. They've got so many weapons around Klingon, who's a really good center. So Alabama's going to have to, limit those opportunities, and they're just going to have to compete. And they're going to have to compete on the glass. If they do that, then Alabama can have a chance to beat Connecticut, because, as David Sisk said on Talking Ball, Alabama plays a lot like Rick Pitino did back in the late 80s and early 90s at Kentucky, shoot a lot of threes, so that can keep you in it. That can be the great X factor, is three-point shooting. Yeah. And that's what won the game against Clemson, making 16 threes. But they did a lot of other little things well. And Alabama, the way they beat a great team like North Carolina, and don't get it twisted, North Carolina was a great team, a very experienced team. They had the 4 horsemen. They had 4 guys get 18-plus. People aren't really talking about it, but, Alabama won that game, and guess who the 4th leading scorer was? Who? Mark Sears. Mm-hmm. He only scored 4 points in the second half.
Exactly.
So Grant Nelson had 24. Estrada had 19. He was really good. Rylan Griffin had 19. They're going to need contributions like that in order to beat a team like Connecticut.
And I did think that they got that in that Clemson matchup, but it was more from, you get one guy on the bench that's actually starting to show a little bit more. That was in the form of Stevenson, and then you get 4 or 5 guys on that starting lineup that really are there to play. They've come to play and given help to Mark Sears, that includes Nick Pringle and all that. But the thing that I wanted to look at, because this is a really good UConn team that Alabama will be facing off against. Great offense, very stout defense, but a lot of people overlooking the percentage on the three-point shooter they had. Because, of course, 30-0 run, you're going to be looking at this team like they've got a great offense. They were only 17.6% at the three-point line. Just kind of talk about how UConn and Alabama kind of contrast in that way.
Well, UConn is a very good defensive team. That's how they won the game. They shut Illinois down, and they ended the half on a 5-0 run to go up 28-23 because it was tied at 23, and then they came out, went on a 25-0 run, and it wasn't about the shooting. It was about defense and rebounding and the dirty work that goes to winning basketball games. That's how UConn was able to suffocate Illinois. But see, UConn can play slow, they can play fast, they can play any style, but I will say this: Illinois had come in playing at a very high level. They had won the Big Ten tournament. Purdue did not win the Big Ten tournament. Illinois had been very impressive in their own right in beating a really good Iowa State basketball squad that under T.J. Otzenberger that was really good defensively, and they shredded them pretty good in that game. But they are a little bit different than Alabama in their approach. Illinois, they're more 5-out, like to break you down off the dribble. Alabama's more penetrate, kick, shoot a lot of threes, so they'll stretch the defense out. That's what they're going to have to do against Connecticut. And again, like we said, games aren't always won on paper. Going into this Final Four, there's going to be tons of talk about how that UConn and Purdue, and perhaps rightfully so, are on a collision course, and they're both going to be heavily favored. But again, that's why you play the games. That's why this is the NCAA tournament. That's why it's my favorite event, because this NC State squad, they had to win 5 games in 5 days just to get in the tournament. Mm-hmm. And then I saw a lot of headlines yesterday, and again, I'm a Duke guy, but I had Duke going out in the Sweet 16 because I thought Houston, I still think if she doesn't get hurt, they win that game, and then they have a good chance to knock out NC State. But injuries happen. It happened to Alabama with Brandon Miller last year when he wasn't healthy against San Diego State. That's part of the journey. Mm-hmm. But again, I just think overall when I looked at it, I just felt like that it opened up for NC State because Duke is kind of a soft team. They don't really have a 5. Duke played well at times, but wasn't consistent. And they got off to a good start against NC State, but they couldn't sustain it. And NC State just did a really good job. And to me, it wasn't shocking. 15 days before that, NC State had beaten Duke, so I don't know why, and North Carolina. So I don't know why everybody was shocked that NC State had enough left in the tank. So they certainly are going to be capable against Purdue. With DJ Burns and those guys, they're playing really well with a lot of confidence. So, what if, guys? What if Alabama and NC State play for the national championship?
That's ideal.
And then, look, Alabama's already seen Purdue. They played Purdue earlier in the year over in Toronto, which is the home base of Zach Edey. He's a Canadian. They played Purdue very tough. Purdue Zach was dominant like he always is, but I think Alabama lost a very close basketball game, a very competitive basketball game. So if Alabama can somehow put together their best 40 minutes and beat UConn, whether it's NC State, whether it's Purdue, I think Alabama would be very, very confident in their ability to have a chance to win a national championship. And at this point in time, that's all you can ask. And it's a watershed moment for Alabama's program. And I still think Nate Oates is just getting started. So this is just a historic time, and it's just been great to be along the journey.
Love the sound of that and that Purdue Alabama score early on in the year. Well, actually, the end of last year was 92-86. So just think about the growth that's gone into this Crimson Tide team and kind of just come up with a number in your head. But we got to hop into a break. Drew, appreciate you, man. I can't wait to talk with you again. But when we get back, stepping away from the college basketball for a sec to talk a little bit of, I would say, soggy talk here on the Morning Blitz on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Specializing in simple and affordable rentals, McCurry Van and Car Rental can make sure you have just the right vehicle for your next family vacation, weekend getaway, or if you just need transportation while your vehicle is being repaired. McCurry carries Ford Transit vans and Mercedes Sprinter vans, trucks and work vans, and more. And they offer discounted rental rates for long-term rentals. Now with 4 locations: Athens, Muscle Shoals, Coleman, and Huntsville. Log on McCurryRentals.com to make your reservation now. That's McCurryRentals.com.
I'm here today with Dr. Tracy Lowery of Veracity Vein Center. Now, how does someone suspect they have vein issues?
The most common symptoms associated with vein issues include leg heaviness, aching, and swelling, with some patients having visible veins as well. Vein issues can be easily diagnosed using ultrasound, with treatments performed as an outpatient using the latest minimally invasive techniques. Diagnosis and treatment is covered by most insurances. Both men and women have vein issues, though men may be more likely to ignore their symptoms when they're playing golf or walking the stadium steps. They too will benefit from correction of their vein problem. Patients can contact our clinics in Huntsville and new clinics in Madison and Coleman at 256-715-7151 or visit us at VeracosityVeinCenter.com.
Veracity Vein Center, Alabama's premier vein center.
The kitchen is the heart of any home. It's where the family gathers. It's where kids discover old recipes and make them their own. Just starting out or just now getting started on the dream kitchen you've always wanted?
I'm Chris Haygood, and from all of us here at Bob Wallace Appliance to the home builders and the homeowners of the Huntsville area, a heartfelt thank you for buying local. We're in Huntsville, Florence, and Coleman, and online at bobwallaceappliance.com.
Forgiveness. Wow, what a word, what a gift. All of us have done things in our lives that we regret. All of us have done things that are disobedient. All of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Thank God for his forgiveness. Thank God that he separates our sins as far as the east is from the west and remembers them no more. Hey, I'm John Dees, pastor of Cross Point Church, smack dab across the street from the YMCA in Madison. Check us out at cpcfamily.org.
Hello and welcome back in to the Morning Blitz. John Abraham, Captain Cool, alongside the Bandiman, Bailey Lowery, about to get out of here, so make sure you guys go over to the App Store, download our app if you are out of the vehicle, and then you can listen to us on the go wherever you go. Doesn't matter about any signal. You don't have to worry about FM going a little static. Oh no, you got us in the back pocket, and you can just pull us up. 97.7 ESPN The Zone over on Apple and Android stores. Bandy, we didn't get into any of these stories outside of March Madness, but Richmond was fun. Denny Hamlin got the win. Martin Truex Jr. led for half of the race, and he was very upset at the end of it. We also had a NASCAR driver in the Xfinity Series. Yeah, it's the Xfinity Series. He ripped off his bumper, threw it at another car.
See that.
That was all over the place. It was a little bit of, and it's funny because it was like he was sponsoring a hate crime like a company or something like that.
What?
I don't know. It was like an establishment, and he threw the bumper that said literally like stop, race against hate crime or whatever like that. And I was like, well, this is exactly what it was.
Oh,
it's so goofy.
Sound like a company that does hate crimes.
Yeah, Rashid Rice got in a little bit of trouble.
Sponsor.
Still evading the police. We'll talk a little bit more about that one. But for me and Bandyman, we're out of here. We'll be back in 23 hours here on The Morning Blitz.
By now, you know about Eagle Masonry and Insulation, and maybe you